Okay, as you can see, this
lies
is
Cappadocia,
Cappadocia.
in central Turkey.
I'll comment on this after
Here,
it's done.
wind and water have sculpted strange shapes out of the soft volcanic rock.
Not volcanic.
Rock which ancient peoples once turned into small primitive dwellings. In more recent years, the site has seen the construction of more modern structures. But in 1963, a simple home renovation in the town of Derinkuyu led to an extraordinary discovery when a cave wall was opened, revealing a passageway to an underground city thousands of years old.
These are all arterial
280 feet
passageways.
I've been there on multiple occasions, and it's incredible because there's 13 stories that go deep into the ground with ventilation shafts and 15,000 little shafts that bring air to even the deepest of...
All right, this is all natural. Believe it or not, this is natural. That is the way your bones and your tissues work. You have arterial vascularization, which pumps blood to every little place, and they come and I'm going to show you. These things are just natural, and what they did was they excavated, or these were possibly mostly excavated out of here, because blood in the arterial passageways tends to blow out because of the because it's not restricted. There is no clamps, and it's a completely open tubing, and that arterial stuff blows out when the body gasifies, it's called. And then, and additionally, these big creatures were so deep in the ground that the groundwater pressurization, and apparently there at one time, because you can see there was a lot of erosion, that means a lot of erosion means a lot of groundwater. A lot of groundwater means a lot of artesian, which is artesian well pressure. And that, once it cleans these out, then they just moved in and dug out a few nice little places. You know, I mean, they did a lot of work. I'm not saying they didn't do any work, but a lot of this was just there. That's just that's the way nature is. And I'm going to show you other ones that will blow your mind. But they're plant materials, they're animal materials, and they're petrified, and they were enormous. Just a fact. All right, we just looked at Derinkuyu, and now I always seem to break somebody's bubble when I start doing my stuff, but nobody ever anticipated the fact that creatures were as big as they are, and were at this point, and that's just what they were, and you know, the proof is the proof. Now these structures here are being said to, you know, and they look like it. They look like somebody built this and poured this at like concrete or something, or was rebar or something like that, and that's what's being claimed on the internet, but it's not correct. This is actually literally plant material. These are the cellular structures within a plant, the cell walls, and I will show you that. And this was from some gigantic creature, plant. Now, there's different, the basalt column ones are from actual terrestrial creatures. Now, these were from, I believe, terrestrial plants. And maybe even water plants, I don't know. But this is the cellular nature of plants. And I'm going to show you a little more on this. Hold on a second. I think I have another down here. Yeah, here we go. I commented on this. Now, look. You see this? Let's look at this. Look at this. You see that right there? You see these here? That was it during Derinkuyu. Remember the tubes running down through, and all, they said all the air runs everywhere and all this business? Well, it does. That's just that's the way it works. These are the vertical shafts, and they have all these cutouts and all those square little things, and that's what they did. And now that's how it is made. And this is the structure right here of the that big cave looking thing that had all this stuff. Now that is also let me show you something else. Hold on a second. Alright, this is the same stuff. This is plant cellular material, and you see these Nature is blocky. All nature is blocky. Plants, animals, you're built in blocks, little chunks and squares. I'm telling you, that's a fact. And if you look at the microscopic shots of muscle and tendons and all of that stuff, they are little blocky squares. And that's just the way nature is. And that's the nature of cells. This is opal, and opal is the reason opal forms is because of blood and the transition metals that are in blood. And that's what petrifies opal. And that's the difference between opal and mud fossils. If this was a mud fossil, you wouldn't be able to see anything here. It would all be like brownish looking, and it would all mix together with these cell linings. But in the opals, you can get this exquisite variegation. I'm going to show you something that will blow your mind. Hold on a second. And it proves the fact that transition metals are they are literally the essence of life. Without those, you have nothing in life. And they treat them as trace minerals. These are the things that will show you how complicated life is. You're going to see something that'll knock your socks off. Hold on a second. Okay, now watch this. This is literally exactly like the plumbing in your body. Now watch.
Incredibly, the number of rock rooms that were found could hold over
20,000 they're talking. Now, you see these vertical lines here? It's exactly what your body does. And then from those, it passes over into the vascularization of your body, over into the other vein to suck back up. Now, these would be arterial because veins, clamp off, and then you wouldn't see the veins. So the veins are in here somewhere, and they're going to be black. And these would have been opened because of the way it works. I'm sure they were opened, and they didn't do a lot of this excavation. However, they might have, obviously they squared up these rooms and moved, did a lot of work in there. I'm not saying they didn't do that, but the basic framework and the basic plumbing was already there. And I'm sure there was water coming up from some of these, and there was wells in there as well. All right, that's actually what blood does in your body. It comes from here, from your heart pumps it down here after it was oxygenated from your lungs. And the red means it's got a lot of oxygen. That means the extra oxygen is in here. As it comes down, it pushes it through all these little arterial vascular network until it comes over, and you see how they get little tiny ones? Well, they're feeding all of the muscular material and all that stuff, and then they come back over here to the blue side, which is the vein that sucks them back up. And they're not quite as many vessels over there because they're just being have to slurp back up. Now, these have clamps in them. They clamp the veins off so that if something happened up here, the blood can't gush back in and go back up through here. Now, that's not the case in arteries. Arteries come down completely open, and then when it goes bloop, bloop, bloop from your blood, from your heart, pumping, you go lump, 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 it's pushing, 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 and there's nothing to restrict it. Once it gets into this network, though, it has clamps. So if something tried to push it back this way, they pinch off. And those are, I also have those in the mud fossils. They're just everywhere. And Mount Kalish is a giant venal clamp. It's a fact, as far as I'm concerned.
storerooms,
All right, now watch this. They had everything.
wine presses, and stables for livestock.
And
Darren Kuyu would have been a massive undertaking for anyone, even in modern times, with modern equipment. But in those days, it would have been
impossible.
stupendous. Equal to the pyramids.
And the pyramids were built down because those were originally tendons that were up like this, and they broke the pieces down and moved them down on the sides. That's how the pyramids were built. And Darren Kuyu, or whatever they call it, is the same sort of situation. It was arterial vascularization that becomes opened because there's no clamps, and it is a very fluid substance. It's body fluids. It's blood. And that is the kind of stuff that washes right out of you when you die. That's just the way it works. Now, you see that? That's an opalized heart. And that was opalized because it was petrified in blood. And what happens is the transition metals can find, because of their specific way transition metals are, they can find and they can attach and reattach and drop and reattach until they find exactly the guy that they want to be with. And this blue is the heartstrings. You see, those are what they call the heartstrings of the heart. The red is the blood, obviously. These are the ventricle walls. That is the fascia, and I don't know if they call it pleura on the heart, but it's the outside coating. And it's just, they're all there. Everything's there. And that's just the way it works. Transition metals are the metals, and they do everything in your body that is related to life. They take on oxygen and give it up, and take on carbon dioxide and give it up, and they do all that stuff. They transfer, move food, and that is the way transition metals were built by God to do this stuff. And that's why they're there. And life is so complicated that if anybody could possibly think that it just started and does all this by things bumping together, little molecules that blew out of absolutely nothing, modern science is absolutely insane. We have to come down to the reality of what really did happen, and it was creation, and there is a God, and it is created, and this stuff is so complicated, and it is so well programmed, and we going around there screwing around with DNA, we are going to break this stuff, and then when we start getting errors coming up, we have no codes to fix them, and that's the facts. Go in there, change this DNA, you have just made a terrible mistake, and we already have, so that's just the way it works. Well, Ron, and I'm going to explain to you a little bit about programming. You cannot program something to do the kind of stuff that is done here without exquisite, deep programming. This is, we talk about evolution, that's a tweak. That is nothing. We talk about all of the things that life does that we see and we think we can control, like diseases and skin conditions and hair growth and all of these things. We're making all these things to do things to them. That is deep programming. What we're doing is putting a little Band-Aid here, a Band-Aid there, yes. But you get in deep with that DNA and you are going to destroy everything. Because we have literally codes. They have stop codes, end codes. In between is the characters in our DNA that control things. It's just exactly identical to a program. You have a stop code, you have a bunch of characters, you have an end code, you have, then inside there's all jumps to go to here, do that. Then it'll say enable this device like your hand or your eye, store this information such and such a place, go back and retrieve it and sort it and query it and do all these things. That is what's happening in your body, and that was programmed by a programmer that is nobody that we have on this planet now that is messing with these things. They are going to break it. And I was a software platform developer, and I know what happens when you get errors in these kind of deep programming things, and something starts to happen, and you get a crash, and we don't have programs within. It's called error handling inside of a major program. So if something goes wrong, it says, okay, go out and energize the credit card machine, which means to enable it. And then you enable it, and then you swipe your card, and it says, okay, read these digits in such and such an order. This says that your date of birth, here's your social, all this stuff comes off your credit card. Then it sends out to somewhere, and then it has to be verified. Then it has to come back, and then it has to be processed. Then it has to print, and then it has to do all this enabling DNA. It's literally an organism. Now, if something goes wrong during that entire operation, and there are ways, they call it checksum verifications. They send out here's I'm going to tell you exactly how this happens. You send out codes, and when you send them out, it actually does a calculation on that code that you're sending out. You may have all kinds of things. The Encyclopedia Britannica goes out. It adds up every A and B and C and and it gives them a number, and then it adds it up, and it says, here's what I sent. It was 1052799 ABC or whatever the codes are. And then when it gets it, it sends a handshake back and it says, hey, I just got all that stuff. Here's the codes that I received when I did the same calculation you did. It's ABCAFFD. If they match, that's a checksum verification. The code is correct. Life goes on. If it isn't correct, guess what happens? It says, what happened? It says, I don't know, check line number 227 in the program in this particular module, and go into error handling. Well, we don't have any error handling. Guess what? We don't know what to do. Something goes wrong. It says, go to check page number 227. It says, whoa, I don't have any page 227. What are you talking about? And crash and burn, baby. Because we can reset a computer, but you can't reset the human race. And that is what's going to happen. Guaranteed. You cannot program in these kernel codes without being a source code program. We don't have a clue what we're doing. We are making terrible, terrible, terrible decisions. We're destroying the earth. We're destroying the animal life. We're destroying the oceans. Insanity.